This video is a story about a homeless man that I met yesterday, and it was a really simple experience, and I learned a lot about compassion. So I was driving to grab some food, and when I was driving home I noticed a homeless man walking down the street, and I was taught recently to go out of my way to be kind to others, and to care about the people in the streets and to care about the people around you and not to just drive past them. So I was on my way home, and normally I would just disregard it and go on my way. I've got stuff to do. So again, I was taught to kind of go out of my way, so I've been doing that a lot more, and I went out of my way. And so I made a U-turn. I also thankfully had $2 in my pocket, 2 American dollar bills, and there was another homeless man, so I parked my car. It's a little bit awkward. It feels that way when you're hunting down a homeless person to give them money, and you better hope they're homeless. Maybe they're just wearing terrible clothes. But I stop in an alley, and there's the first homeless man. This is an additional homeless man, so I offered him $1 and I said, "Here, would you like this?" He said yes. So the second one, the original one that I turned around for, I said, "Hey, would you like $1?" He's like, "I would love that." I said, "How are you today?" He said, "I'm good." And we started to talk. And he starts to tell me these stories about what life is like on the street in Vancouver, what life was like. He told me he had a house and a wife, and how he lost his wife and things just went downhill from there, and he ended up on the streets, and how life was challenging. He talked about how how recently he had saved up $7,000 in a jar, and that it got stolen. And he said, I was ready to get off the streets, and I was ready to get an apartment and get a license, and I had to pay $6,000 in fees to the government for something that wasn't even for him. There's some sort of story about it. But he told me that he was diagnosed with cancer. And so they said, "You have terminal cancer and you're going to die." And he said, "Are you 100% sure?" I said, "Yes, you're going to die." So, as any man would probably do, he got out a lot of money, credit cards and whatever he could, to enjoy his life. But he didn't just go and spend all the money on himself. What he did was he gave a lot of it away. He got as much money as he could, and he gave it away. He gave away thousands of dollars to different people who needed it. That's what he did. And so when he didn't die and he had the surgery and he was fine, he had all this debt that he couldn't pay back. And so through that and some other things, he ended up on the street. And I was reflecting on my mind, and I was telling him, I was like, "Do you know how rare that is for somebody to know they're gonna leave this planet, but you have a selfless thought. You went out and you wanted to give money away. You wanted to help other people." I don't think that that's a very common thought. He talked about being on the street and somebody needing the last $20, and he would just automatically give that money to other people. Over and over again, he would tell me stories about being on the street and somebody needing something and him just doing it for them. And he was just telling me stories, but over and over through his story, he demonstrated compassion. He was talking about this woman who ran a hair salon, and she ended up getting robbed, and she couldn't, she had like a tip jar or something, and she ended up getting robbed and needed $20 or something to finish her laundry to get back to her kids, and he just offered her the $20 he had because that's all he had. And and then since then they've actually become friends, and she supported him a little bit, here and there. She invited him over for Christmas and stuff. And so as he tells me this story about how compassionate he just keeps giving things away and helping people, talking about how one of his friends was having a hard time with drugs. I don't know what it's called. I can't remember. But when they're coming off the drugs or whatever, and him just going out and spending his last money to like either get him medicine or sometimes even get him the drugs. Although you wouldn't think that that would be a helpful thing. That's, I guess, what they need at the time or whatever. But would constantly give his last money away, even if he had it, to help somebody else. And the end of it, you know, the point of this is where I was listening to this man, and I had, you know, $80 in my pocket or something like that, and I was like, I'm gonna give this guy $20. And so I go in my pocket and I give him the $20, and I was like, here, man, take this. And he looks at me and he goes, oh man, like, I don't know, are you sure that you can afford it? And he was serious. He was more concerned if I could afford giving him the $20 out of my pocket. And he goes, you know, and he just looks at it, he's like, oh man, I really want that, but, you know, I don't want to take it if you can't afford it. And it was just so beautiful, so amazing, the level of compassion and just, I don't know, kindness and selflessness and whatever else that would be, to be concerned. You know, I drove up in a car, I'm living indoors. And so I think the point of the story is just to recognize, you know, to have compassion for people. You see people who are homeless, you don't know how they got there. You don't know anybody's circumstance. And I think that somebody like that, for me in the world, will, you know, demonstrates more actual kindness and compassion and service toward humanity and his fellow man through his daily actions, although he might be homeless, through action, you know, through these actions. So, you know, it's just a story to say for us to be aware of what's going on in our surroundings and to take action and to be compassionate to our fellow man and to practice non-judgment, because we don't know other people's stories. So that's the story that I wanted to share of the homeless man, and I hope that it inspires you to be kinder to your fellow man, to be compassionate, to take action, you know, to actually do something for other people, to actually take action. So that's it. Tons of love. Have a great day.